As the campaign season of 496 dawns, we find the Persian and Greek forces split into three main forces. In Chios is the Persian navy with a smaller force of troops. A much more substantial force is forming in Phocaea, whilst in Stagira, Reza the Illustrious has gathered a large force looking to subjugate the Macedonians. For the Greeks there is a small force in Athens, led by the diplomat Nemetis. In Pydna a large force has been formed by the great orator Surafan, who has hopes of conquering Macedonia and maybe even Thrace. In Larissa an even larger Greek force is slowly coalescing in hopes of joining the campaign. The campaign begins with Surafan bypassing Pella and leading his forces into Therma. In response, Reza the Illustrious force marches his men to intercept. Arriving in Therma, both sides, realizing they are evenly matched, push their vanguards forward, hoping to form a bridgehead across the river Ekidoros. Whoever can gain an advantage on the opposite bank will control the battlefield and force the other side to fall back. The Greek commander Surafan places his two divisions of phalanx either side of the swampy ford, and places his skirmishing cavalry and Scylla in a position to gain control off the rough ground. Reza the Illustrious places his immortal units on his left flank, while his Sparabara take the right. He spreads his medium cavalry between the center and the left flanks. Reza the Illustrious sends his immortals towards the Greeks, racing the Greeks to the river. First blood is drawn by his cavalry, who manages to send one of the Greek phalanx into a state of confusion. Greek turn 1. Surafan sends his right flank hoplites into the river, seeking to close the distance to the immortals before their bow fire can cause even more disruptions. At the same time, he sends his Scylla skirmishers through the swampy forest to scout out the other side. Persian turn 2. Reza the Illustrious orders his immortals to hold their ground and fire upon the Greek phalanx as his cavalry cross the river towards the lone phalanx on the rise. Unfortunately, there is some confusion amongst his forces, and some of the immortals move further to the left, splitting his formation. In the center, the Greek skirmishers are surprised by a medium cavalry regiment and are run down before they can make their way to the safety of the forest. Greek turn 2. Led by Surafan himself, the Greek hoplites charge off the rise, and engage the Persian medium cavalry. Reza the Illustrious, knowing this engagement could turn the tide of the battle, also enters the melee to bolster his troops. For a moment there is a scare for the Greeks as rumors begin that Surafan had been struck down, but he quickly finds himself a new mount and rallies his men, pushing the Persians off the rise and sending the cavalry back into the river. In the center of the battlefield, Greek light cavalry seek to make their way around the swamp to find their Scylla comrades, only to find themselves set upon by the Persian cavalry, and they break and flee. Persian turn 3. After carefully making their way across a shallow ford, the Persian side chariots rush up the hill towards Sorofan's hoplites, hoping to buy time for Reza the Illustrious to rally his forces. Elsewhere, the Persians continue to fill the skies with their arrows and are starting to seriously take a toll on the Greek forces. Surafan and his men lock shields as they have no time to dodge the oncoming chariots, but it is too little too late, and they take horrendous casualties. Greek turn 3. On the rise, Surafan rallies his men, and as his other hoplites find themselves still stuck in the river, trying to cross against a hail of arrows, things don't look good for the Greeks. The sounds of battle galvanize the Greeks on the other side of the swamp, and they finally make their way to the edge of the river. Can they successfully cross with Spara Barat to the left and cavalry to the right? Persian turn 4. Reza the Illustrious, having rallied his cavalry, leads them back into the heavily wounded hoplites, refusing to give up on his attempts to turn the Greek flank. On the other flank, the Persian divisional commander leads his Sparabara into the lead Greek phalanx. Unfortunately for the Persians, the flanks find themselves on opposite sides of a scale. Reza the Illustrious forces the Greeks back and makes his way up the rise as his Sparabara find crossing the river too difficult in the face of the more heavily armored Greeks, and are forced back, letting the Greeks advance across the river. Greek turn 4. Now the scrummage really begins. The Greeks take it to the Persians. Surafan and his hoplites push Reza the Illustrious and his cavalry back into the river, as the Greek phalanx on the other side of the swamp start to carve up the Sparabara. Persian turn 5. The Immortals engage. As Reza the Illustrious continues to hold against Surafan's hoplites, his Immortals make their move and engage the Greek phalanx that has reached the Persian-controlled riverbank. At the other end of the battlefield, the Persian divisional commander is wounded, and in the confusion his Spara Bara are forced back by the Greeks. All is not lost though, as this causes the Greek battle line to split, and now all the phalanx are isolated fighting for themselves. Turn 5. Huzzah! Reza the Illustrious is slain in the fight versus Surafan, and his cavalry fall back in disorder. Unfortunately for the Greeks, the immortals are resolute, and refuse to give up the river. In the center, the Persian cavalry start to gain the upper hand, and push the Greeks back. But in an even more shocking twist, the Spara Bara minus their commander rally under new leadership, and with a strong will to avenge their loss, destroy the opposing Greek phalanx. Persian turn 6. As the scrummage between the immortals and the Greek phalanx drags on, the freshly invigorated Spara Bara are brought back to earth as they get a bloody nose trying to help the Persian cavalry in the swampy center. And on the far flank, the lone Spara Bara begin to fall back across the river. Their lack of armor and cumbersome shields hand the Greeks a mighty advantage in treacherous river footing. Greek turn 6. The Greeks take the upper hand. On Surafan's flank, the immortal unit in the river is destroyed. And even though the Greek phalanx have taken horrendous losses, they can see a path to victory across the river. And on their far left, the Greeks have crossed the river, pushing back the cavalry and destroying the lone Spara Bara unit. For the first time in this war, the Greek forces are taking the fight to the Persians. Persian turn 7. What remains of the Persian cavalry on their left flank start throwing javelins and firing arrows in support of the immortals on the riverbank, as the Cardaics move up to stop any more Greek momentum. In the center, the Persian cavalry are defeated and flee the battlefield. But all is not lost for the Persians. The Greek phalanx have become separated, and the Spara Bara sees this opportunity to cross the river, denying the Greeks an easy passage back to their camp. Greek turn 7. Yet again Surafan sends the hoplites across the river, this time into the Persian Cardaics. Whilst in his own scrimmage, tragedy befalls Surafan as he is wounded by an immortal's javelin, and retires to the back rank. Unbeknownst to him, on the other flank his split phalanx are unable to make a decision on what to do, and stall their momentum. Persian turn 8. The Sparabara continue their advance, in hopes of cutting the Greeks off from their camp. And on the Persian left flank the Immortals finish off Suriphan's hoplites, forcing his personal guard to ferry him up the rise towards another friendly phalanx. Now the Persians are crossing the river on both flanks. Turn 8. As the Cardaics continue to pressure the phalanx in the river, on the Greek far left their hoplites turn the formation around in the vain hope of catching the Sparabara as they cross the river Ekidoros. Persian turn 9. As the Sparabara complete their river crossing, the severely depleted but still functioning Persian cavalry join the Cardaics in their fight. But the Greek hoplites again show their mettle and fortitude, and push the Persians back from the river once again. Turn 9. Knowing it's too late to catch the Sparabara, the Greek phalanx in the center marches around the swamp, whereupon they find the rear of the Cardaics and charge. Predictably the Cardaics are obliterated, and the Greeks turn towards the remaining Persian cavalry.
Could be game though.
Different shooting.
Could be game. I wouldn't want to throw the dice if I was you. Nice.
Breaking shaking.
Oh my god, I did. Immortals shot them off the freaking wall.
Turn 10. The Persians, thanks to the Immortals' accurate bow fire, have taken the day. They have secured a beachhead across the river, and cut off the Greek phalanx that have crossed the river from their own camp. Failing to get across into Therma, Suriphan falls back to Pella, bloodied but not defeated. Hearing of the great battle, the forces in Larissa rush over the pass to reinforce Suriphan. Now that Reza the Illustrious is no longer in charge, the Persian army falls back, as a squabble for leadership ensues. In Pella, Suriphan attempts a coup, hoping that his forces will call the Macedonians to his side. But they prove reticent to place themselves under his leadership. The Persians, for their part, send envoys to Perin, thus offering them the carrot before the stick. But the Perinthians stand firm. The Persian force in Stagira, still waiting on word from the King of Kings on who should be in charge, falls back again to Ion. Nemesis sails from Athens to the island of Lesbos, on a diplomatic mission to sway the people of Mytilene over to Athens' side. Unfortunately for Nemesis, the Persian admiral Bahman hears of a fleet landing in Lesbos and sets sail. Bahman lands at night, and immediately sends his cavalry out to find the Greek forces, in hopes of catching them unawares. Nemesis, the Greek commander, learns from his scouts that the newly landed Persian force has sent out all its cavalry towards the capital of Lesbos, Mytilene. Knowing that he is outnumbered, he realizes this is his only chance to catch the Persians unawares and wipe out their infantry. Force marching his men, he arrives in the dead of night, and without hesitation sends his men towards the Persian camp. Turn 1. Advancing in the dark towards the sounds of the Persian camp, Nemesis hoped to catch them unaware. Unfortunately, Persian pickets had heard the Greek approach, and the Persians were able to form a battle line. In the dark, the two forces collided, and in the confusion both sides took horrendous losses, with most of the Greek Scylla killed or scattered to the night. Greek turn 2. Nemesis leaves the fight and fetches the trailing hoplites, urging them on towards where the Persians are mopping up the Siloi. Unfortunately, the Greeks prove reluctant to charge into the dark. Persian turn 2. The Persian commander Admiral Bahman begins to take control of the situation and encourages his forces to slowly move forward, firing their bows point blank into the dark. Turn 3. The Greek commander Nemesis, knowing that the Persian cavalry could come back at any time, leads his phalanx headlong into the Sparabara. Just as it seemed that Greek ferocity would take the day, Admiral Bahman and his bodyguard join the fray. In the ensuing scrummage, both sides lose all coherency, and neither commander can tell who has the upper hand, causing both sides to eventually fall back and attempt to take stock of the damage done. Greek turn 4. Nemesis struggles to rally his hoplites as so many men are dead or lost in the dark. Forming them up on a rise with a grove behind them, he sends his Scylla back to the beach, but this time with orders to hide in the trees on the Persian flank and look for a chance to harass or take the camp. Persian turn 4. Admiral Bahman takes this lull in the battle to address his ranks and reorganize his few remaining Sparabara. Fearing the Greeks may come back and try to outflank him through the nearby trees, he faces some of his men that way. Greek turn 5. As Nemesis is finishing up reforming his men, he hears an ominous sound swelling up from behind the grove. Persian turn 5. The Persian cavalry arrive. Having heard the faint sounds of combat in the distance, they have been riding hard towards their camp, not knowing what they will come upon, and leading this reckless charge is their commander and his.
See my chariots! Run to your ships! I'll drive you back to the sea! You came here for gold! The wall will not hold! This thing was promised to me!
Turn 6. As the Greek commander Nemesis turns his remaining hoplites to face the oncoming cavalry, Admiral Bauman leads the bulk of remaining Sparabara up the rise towards the sandwiched Greeks. The Greek Siloi, hearing the noise of the cavalry, and seeing that the beach is still guarded, attempt to make their way back to the hoplite phalanx, in hope of finding some protection. Admiral Bauman surrounds the Greeks, and begins to pour arrows and javelins into them, not wanting to lose more men in the chaos of a nighttime brawl. As Admiral Bauman leads his forces into the remaining Greeks, Nemesis escapes with only a handful of men, making his way back to his triremes. The day and the island still belong to the Persians. Thwarted, Nemesis takes his remaining forces back to Athens, as Admiral Bauman reminds the citizens of Mytilene of who is the power in the Aegean Sea. In Pella, Surafan, anxious to get his campaign back on track, and hearing that the Persian army is falling back along the coast, heads off to Stagira, with orders to his other army to take control of Pella, and then follow him into Persian territory. But Surafan has made a grave error. The Persian forces have a new commander, and he is keen to catch the Greeks whilst their forces are separated. He marches his army into Stagirian territory and sends scouts out to find Surafan. Surafan, the Greek commander, has split his forces into two, hoping to draw the Persians into a trap. After 2 days of march, counter-march, the Persian commander sets up camp on a small hill. only to find himself beset from two sides. Persia turn 1. The Persian commander, realizing he outnumbers his foe, sends his light cavalry to flank one hoplite phalanx through the river. While he wheels his immortals around and unleashes such accurate bow fire, the closest Greek phalanx is thrown into confusion and loses its shape. Greek turn 1. Surafan leads his phalanxes up the hill into the Persian cavalry, who promptly turn tail and flee. On the other flank, the Greek leader sends his light horse and attending skirmishers into the Persian light cavalry, and drives the nearest unit away, as his hoplites advance upon a horde of Sparabara. Persia turn 2. The frenzied Persian side chariots hurtle off the hill and destroy the Greek cavalry. Meanwhile, the Persian horse archers and light cavalry see off the Greek slingers, and the immortals swing around off the hill and charge the isolated Greek hoplites still recovering from the hail of arrows. On the other side of the rise, the Sparabara manage to stall the charging Greeks.
The fairies of the forest will come. They wanna show you to the dance of night. This is the age of Aquarius.
Greek turn 2. The isolated Greek phalanx begins a heroic stand, fighting verse 3 immortal units by driving back the Persians. On the slopes off the rise, the Greek phalanx charges straight through the first Sparabara unit and into the supporting unit. On the top of the rise, the Greeks engage the Persian medium cavalry and start to push them back, whilst also killing the Persian commander. Persia turn 3. The scrum begins. Both sides taking casualties, but no one has the upper hand yet. Greek turn 3. As more Greeks charge up the rise into the Sparabara, the Immortals finish off the isolated phalanx. On the top of the rise, the Persian medium cavalry clear off the advancing Greek phalanx even as the other cavalry unit is pushed back off the opposite side of the rise that they started on.
I came from where the land was rising. I've traveled through the space for so long. A forest nymph is calling for me. Come along and I will guide you where to go.
Persia turn 4. The Persian medium cavalry charge into the phalanx's flank, as the Immortals return to the rise's top. In the fray between the hoplites, Sparabara and cavalry, the Greeks come out on top, driving off the cavalry and scattering a throng of Sparabara.
We ran to a mountain.
Greek turn 4. A mighty turn for the Greeks as they crush the forces on both flanks and push forward. At this point, both flanking forces have passed each other and look to be heading off the opposite sides.
We were waiting here 1,000 years for you. Now you must do something.
Persia turn 5. The Immortals and revitalized cavalry engage the hoplites on top of the rise and drive them back towards the Persian light cavalry. Near the waterfall, Surafan himself begins to lead his division's last unit in a fighting withdrawal by destroying the Persian cavalry. Near the Oikos, the Greeks continued to push forward, inflicting heavy losses on the Sparabara. Greek turn 5. As Surafan leads his men to the waterfall, the last Greek phalanx on the rise is obliterated. On the other flank, the Greeks push hard towards the Oikos, hoping to make it to a defended position before night falls. Persia turn 6. As the Kardaiks enter the battle on the outskirts of the Oikos, the Persian cavalry begin to harass the retreating Greek hoplites. The end. Surafan keeps his hoplite phalanx in a disciplined retreat, taking little casualties from the harassing Persian cavalry as the Greeks on the other flank fight their way into the Oikos in hopes of slipping away come nightfall. In the end, the Persians' larger army proved to be too much for the impetuous Surafan's forces. Surafan, and what troops he can gather, make their way back towards Pella, stopping in Therma when they hear news that his other force is on the march. Surafan has gathered all his forces, but after 2 losses his leadership is in question. Seeking to gain a political victory to bolster his prestige, he sends envoys to Artaces, in hopes of an alliance that will cut off the Persian forces from the Anatolian mainland. But the summer is nearing its end, and the Odrysians are worried that they will be isolated and suffer Persian wrath. So no deal is done. As summer ends, the Greeks are stalled in Therma, and the Persian commander falls back to Ion, consolidating his resources. After a bloody year of fighting, no real political change has occurred, and the Aegean holds its breath, wondering when the mighty Achaemenid king will turn his attention to the far west of his empire.